Good evening to all you out there. It's your boys from Table 5, courtesy of the Sports Bar. Been off for a minute. Folks get busy. Folks have things to do, but we back in the mix. You know that. My boy Adam Fuller, what's going on?
Not much, man. Quarter of the way through the NFL season, baseball playoffs going on, and, you know, Lane Kiffin is out at USC.
Let's start there. Lane Kiffin out, obviously, at USC. Your thoughts?
Well, I thought it was well overdue. You know, he was there, 3.5 years. I know all the sanctions and everything. He wasn't able to, get as many scholarships as a normal, program would. But, being at SC, there's high expectations every time you step out there on the field for the coach and players. And, I mean, it got to a point where, he's supposed to be an offensive-minded coach. But, I mean, so far in the last, the beginning of this year and then, going into last year, I mean, their offense wasn't, what it is. I mean, the last four games, 3 to 4 games of last year, and then, going into this season so far, hasn't really shown that, firepower or offensive mindset that, he's supposed to bring. And, then their defense was playing so well, and then he gave up 62 points to the Arizona State team, who, they're 3-1. They're a pretty good team, and, they'll probably win about 8 or 9 games this year. But, I just think, he kind of lost his team, and I think the guys weren't responding to him as much, and I think, that's what it came down to. And also, recruiting class-wise, they're ranked like, 30, 40 in the nation. When has SC ever had, before Pete Carroll was probably the last time they had a top 20, top 15, recruiting class.
Well, my thing with my problem definitely with the Lane Kiffin situation is just the hire in the first place. I don't remember him really blowing the doors off at Oakland. I mean, to make the transition to go to a high-powered program like Tennessee, you have to almost win right away. So he goes down there and he starts that phony fight with Urban Meyer, and just gets off to a bad start, and then his team loses like 5 or 6 games, which is basically a death sentence. I mean, you can't lose more than 3 or 4 games in college football and be considered any kind of contender or any kind of contention. But what's even odder than that to me, what's weird, is just the fact that you get bombed out at Tennessee, basically, get thrown out of there, and all you do is come cross-country and get, like, the semi-pro job. You took over for a team that had won 34 in a row. You took over for a team that went to 3 consecutive national championship games in a row. Heisman Trophy winner after Heisman Trophy winner after Heisman Trophy winner, and you get that job? How? I mean, you had college football analysts scratching their heads like this guy must have the agent from heaven because the guy never proved himself. Now, I personally think it was a product of privilege. That's what I think. He was young, he looked good for the camera, blonde, all-American guy, and all this other crap. Dad coached, Monty Kiffin, the whole bit. And it was just, to me, it was just strictly a political move. We want to keep that look here. He wasn't hungry when he got here. He wasn't hungry when he left. All you seen from him was sort of going through the motions. He didn't have any of that fire. Say what you want about Pete Carroll. The guy won 90 games in 8 years as a coach. 90-plus games. So, I don't want to hear it. I don't think he should have been hired in the first place. It's that old Dwight Howard adage. What the hell are you doing here in the first place? You know what I mean? Why you even show up here? Who hired you? So, he's out. Hopefully the program can get back on track. They've done nothing basically thus far this season. Maybe they can salvage the season. I don't think anybody's going to frown at 4 losses for USC based on what, kind of production they got, obviously, from the recruiting class. But, you're still talking about USC. Class organization, pride of the, West Coast. I mean, you really think about it, they're really the only team really, it's like Stacy, I talked to
the closest, in the past, decade or so, they've been the closest thing to a professional football team in L.A. I mean, UCLA looks like they're going to have a pretty good team this year, but as far as the closest thing to, professional football team, USC football, that's what it's been to, Southern California, well, to L.A., area.
Agreed. And to second that, I mean, Stacy had a great comment today. I spoke with him, just texting briefly, and he said, look, everybody in the conference has gotten better except USC. I mean, what kind of crap is that? Stanford can beat any, was a solid bowl contender. Oregon can beat anybody. We know that. They just came off, going to a national championship a couple of years ago. Everybody in this conference has gotten better. I mean, when did you think you would see Arizona State beating a USC team? So, how the mighty have fallen, but, now that Lane Kiffin's out of the way, maybe, maybe they can right the ship and get it back on course. That being said, we move right into our second topic, which is the NFL. We'll go to the big boys. Week 4, who's your MVP so far, first quarter of the season?
I'm gonna go probably with I'll go. Gotta go with Manning. I know. He's doing a lot of talent over there, but the guy's been pretty much playing flawless football. 16 touchdowns, no interceptions. They're leading the world in scoring, and he's putting up 300 yards and 3 TDs like it's a video game pretty much, and he's making it look easy. Like no one is really out there. Teams haven't got a ton of pressure on him. He's got the rookie tight end involved in the game. You got Decker, you got Thomas, you got Welker. Their running game is pretty good too. So I mean, it's going to be pretty tough I don't really see them slowing down too much. I mean, unless you're somehow able to get pressure without blitzing them.
Well, an interesting thing about that is if you just back up a few sentences, the odd thing about it was this team, with the exception of Wes Welker, is basically the same team under Tebow. So I guess they were pretty good. I mean, you look at their defense, fast, flying around the football, they get great pressure and everything else. And, oh, by the way, they're not playing with Von Miller, who is probably their best defensive player. Well, I mean, you could have made an argument that he could have got Defensive Player of the Year last year. Obviously, he was in the running. Where did he have 16 sacks or 15 sacks last year? The bottom line is, for me, is it's a no-brainer that Manning is the first quarter MVP. Moreno can give you 1,000 yards rushing. They're clicking on all cylinders. Here's my concern, though. There's always a but to everything, but this, but that. And I'm not raining on anybody's parade because I love Peyton Manning. I got an opportunity to watch him play in college. Tennessee made the trip out here to UCLA. It was back in the day. I got to see him play as a freshman, and he was great then. My concern is this. If this guy does not win a Super Bowl with Denver, does it taint his legacy? No. Does it make him any less of a great player? No. Will he probably win the MVP? Yes. But here's my concern, though. How great are we really going to consider a guy who has a fistful of MVPs but only one ring? What that's telling me is either you've played on some bad teams or you haven't shown up in the big game. With the exception of the Super Bowl, which to me was a shaky Super Bowl at best. I take nothing away from Peyton Manning. Again, I love him. But that was a shaky Super Bowl. Bears got a lot of bad calls. I mean, horse bleep calls. And it was almost as if, it was Manning's time. They wanted him to have it. He got a lot of bad calls. It was raining. It was an outdoor Super Bowl. A lot of factors contribute. Again, I'm not making excuses for anybody or trying to rain on Manning's parade. I'm just saying this is arguably, and we talked about it before, you and I, this is arguably the best team he's had. And when I say the best, I mean the best. People don't understand. They never really had a consistent 1,000-yard rusher that could take pressure off of him in Indianapolis. Yeah, he had Marvin Harrison. And when Marvin left, he had Reggie Wayne. But he didn't have this just receiving core that was just all world. He didn't have a consistent, 1,500, 1,600-yard back. He didn't have that, and he really never had a defense. He had Dwight Freeney. The two best defensive players I think I've ever seen around him was probably Bob Sanders and Dwight Freeney. So, again, he's never really had what he has now. This team he has now is really good, which is kind of funny because if you backtrack a couple of years when everybody was just, caught up in Tebow mania, and I kept saying the same thing. This team is good without Tebow. I personally think Eric Decker can catch 70 balls. I personally think Demaryius Thomas can be a Pro Bowler. Absolutely. And again, Noshawn can rush for 1,000 yards easily. So, again, I'm not trying to diminish what he's doing in any kind of way. It's just odd that, now all of a sudden, people think this Denver team is good. And they've been good since they had Tebow. They just didn't get any credit because it was a popularity contest. So, again, I look forward to, I want to see them play the meat of their schedule. They're clearly the best in their division. San Diego, obviously just can't seem to get it right. I don't know if San Diego looks good one week and they don't. Phillip Rivers seems to, at times, still seem to not be able to get out of his own way. Even though his numbers look good. But I watched the guy, on Sunday just intently. I watched, just every play. And, they're 4- and 5-yard passes. Everything's dink and dunk. And at times they have him going a bit downfield. And, I like that Norv Turner's not in there so we get to see a new style. But, I'm not sold on Phillip Rivers. And so I'm not really sold on the Chargers. I'll love them forever. I'll love them forever. But, forever's never going to come with that Super Bowl. So, clearly the class of that division is Denver with Kansas City right in tow, who I believe is for real. And Oakland obviously is going through sort of a change-up where, Oakland, needs to they're going through an identity crisis. Obviously, obviously Pryor is, out now. But he was trying, he tried. He had heart. He stuck his chest out, said it with his chest, as they say. And I think he played well. But, at the end of the day, the Raiders are still a mess. And so it is what it is. But, there are some other surprises around the NFL. You're talking about an 0-4 Giants team. The Steelers are 0-4. That, to me, is you talk about befuddled. I mean, I can't understand that one for the light. The Steelers, 0-4? No. So, this may just be one of those years where, the quote-unquote
Kansas City 4-0.
Yeah, Kansas City 4-0. Which, you knew eventually Andy Reid could whip that team into shape. He does have I think he overstayed his welcome in Philadelphia, but you'll never hear me say that Andy Reid wasn't a good coach. You'll never hear me say that. Hall of Fame, I don't know, but I know Andy Reid was an excellent coach. I didn't mind him at all. I think he overstayed his welcome in Philly, but again, that Kansas City team, they look for real. So, Alex Smith obviously got a chip on his shoulder, and it is what it is. Frisco, speaking of which, the team he left, I believe Kaepernick has been figured out. I'm not sure I'm liking that, but
I think not having Crabtree is hurting their offense as far as the vertical passing game because they don't really, Bolden and Vernon Davis, they're not going to really, burn you. They can beat you here and there, but they're not burners out there. Crabtree, he provides that option in the slot. to where, he could break a tackle and go,